Hello. In this lecture, we are going to start with Auguste Comte, and here we will focus on Comte's sociological positivism. Sociology, we know, emerged in the 19th century in Western Europe in a context that was marked by anarchy, social dissolution, alienation, and rootlessness of humans. Such large-scale social disruption was hastened by three events of the preceding century: the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, and the French Revolution. We said our focus would be on Comte's sociological positivism. So then how did sociological positivism emerge? Swingewood says that sociological positivism of the 19th century emerged in reaction to the critical positivism of the Enlightenment, and the transformation into sociological positivism was particularly brought about by the French Revolution. The Enlightenment, as we know, had made science the epitome of knowledge, the only valid form of knowledge, and it had also led to a secularization of society and had considered family and religion, particularly the church, as irrational institutions that need to be done away with. Sociological positivism was also heavily influenced by the conservative romantic reaction. The philosophers of the 18th century Enlightenment successfully combined the two hallmarks of 17th century West European thought, a rationalism with that of Newton's empiricism. Newton was the role model for the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was rooted in the belief that society and its arrangements could be studied by deploying the methods of the natural sciences. Such a study would enable humans to understand the institutions and arrangements and how they functioned. Most importantly, it would enable humans to understand and measure the same institutions and social arrangements in the light of reason, so that they could be made suitable for the progress of humanity. It further believed that immutable laws governed the universe. The society, its institutions, political and economic institutions, and human relations should be governed in accordance with discoverable laws. This would help make the human condition better. The Enlightenment further propagated that the church was not the custodian of knowledge, and we have already stated that the only valid form of knowledge was based on reason, empiricism, and experimentation, that is, science. It was the basis of positivist thought. The Enlightenment secularized knowledge, created secular cross-cultural forms of communication, a secular intelligentsia, and a secular audience. The Enlightenment's fundamental tenets of philosophical individualism and humanism was directed against the absolutist state, in particular the French absolutist monarchy, church, and social institutions they deemed irrational and harmful. Thus, Enlightenment positivism was essentially critical and revolutionary. The transformation of this critical positivism, as Swingewood points out, that came into 19th century sociological positivism occurred in post-revolutionary France, the main impetus coming from the reaction. With the exception of Montesquieu and Ferguson, Enlightenment thought had failed to develop a theory of society as a system and as an objective structure. A theory of society as a totality and as an objective structure is fundamental to the development of sociology as an independent empirical science. Comte incorporated selected aspects from the Enlightenment and the conservative romantic reaction to develop his sociological positivism. He incorporated the reaction's concept of society as an organic unity that expressed the whole culture. He incorporated the positive role of traditional institutions in binding society together. But Comte rejected the irrational and negative view of science that was central to the philosophy of the reaction. For Comte, the moral crisis of the post-revolutionary age could be resolved only through the application of positive science and the principles of industrial organization derived from the empirical study of social development. This is a direct quote from Alan Swingewood. Comte believed that the old order was not possible to be restored. He therefore argued for a synthesis of the opposing ideas of order and progress. He indeed believed that it was possible to bring these together. He believed that intellectual harmony was necessary for the restoration of social order. Influenced by Saint-Simon's belief in science and technology and his works on industrial society, Comte further developed his sociological positivism. He fully agreed with Saint-Simon that the 18th century was a destructive one, which failed to create any positive social structure. He aimed at creating foundations for a new edifice or structure that would be geared to the interests of social order and social consensus. We would be able to recall that one of the fundamental questions that sociology dealt with when it emerged in the 19th century was, how was order possible? So therefore, the problem of order and solidarity had been at the heart of our concerns. Comte argued that the essential aim of practical politics was to avoid the violent revolutions which spring from obstacles opposed to the progress of civilization. Comte aimed at developing a science of society that was both capable of tracing its past and predicting the future, like the natural sciences. That would be sociology. It was to be modeled along the lines of natural sciences. Comte was interested in knowing the laws of motion that governed humanity and what exactly contributed to social stability. This accounting for stability marked one cardinal aspect of post-Enlightenment sociological positivism. Comte argued that human society was subject to basic laws like the rest of the natural world, although the very nature of human society makes it a more complex task, that is, discovering these laws and how they work. Natural science had succeeded in establishing the lawfulness of natural phenomena. In the world of nature, science had succeeded in progressively contracting the realm of the apparently non-ordered, the fortuitous, and the accidental. The developed natural sciences have laid a firm foundation for explaining the functioning of the universe through a study of natural laws. This had taken away the explanatory schemes of finding the first and final causes of phenomena. Indeed, Comte asserted that it was now time to pursue a similar study for society. Sociology was not only to be patterned along the natural sciences in terms of methods of inquiry, but it was to be of benefit to humankind, like the natural sciences have been through their inventions and discoveries. And how would it be of benefit? And we go into that through his positivism. Although Comte was against the critical positivism of the Enlightenment, he borrowed the insistence of natural science methods for the study of society and the beneficial aspects of the natural sciences. Comte insisted that it was absolutely necessary for humans to understand the laws that governed nature if they were to transform the natural environment to their advantage. In making his case for sociology as a positive science, Comte argued that as long as humans believed that there were no laws that governed social phenomena, there would be chaos in society. So he believed that once sociology could teach human beings that development and order in human society follow invariable laws, humans would try to utilize these laws for their collective benefit and purpose, as had been the case with the natural sciences. And this is one of the ways that sociology could be of benefit to humanity. For Comte, once humanity accepted the fact that society was governed by immutable laws, it would recognize the limits on social action placed by these laws. He set himself the task of finding the principles of social reorganization. True science, or the positive spirit for Comte, was the establishment of intellectual order, for Comte believed that the intellectual order formed the basis of all other orders. Comte insisted that all social phenomena, like that of the natural world, were subject to invariable social laws. Once it has been established as a fact for humanity, the latter should subject itself to their dictates. The discovery of these basic laws would cure the revolutionary spirit and calm the restlessness of the human mind. See, this is again would be seen as another positive benefit that sociology as a science would bring to humanity. It would allow for the calming of that restlessness. The positive spirit tends to consolidate order by the rational development of a wise resignation to incurable political evils. That is, we must accept, because science has proven that these incurable political evils cannot be done away with. So what can we do? It would be futile on our part to try and bring about revolutionary changes and do away with these evils. What does Comte suggest then? As we have just said, that we must resign to this. It is a wise resignation. Thus, as Swingewood points out, that Comte's philosophy contrasted sharply with that of Vico, for whom the social world was the work of humanity. He says that the questions of active human labor in the transformation of society is assimilated to a theory of objective determining facts. Comte says that a clear understanding provided by positive sciences would provide to humanity the clear possibility of contextualizing its actions within the social and historical contexts. What would it do? Humanity would recognize the constraints that any social order imposes on action and hence reorder society within the limits imposed by the laws that determine the order and progress of society, or the ones that govern humanity. That is the laws of motion. The new positive science, as developed by Comte, took away the legitimacy from perennial tradition. At the same time, it denounced the radical transformations and radical political philosophy of the preceding period. The emphasis on the relative instead of the absolute, Swingewood says, forms the core of Comte's thought. Therefore, instead of accepting tradition and canonical truths as being valid perpetually, he insisted on the continued progress of human understanding and the self-corrective character of the scientific enterprise. Comte vested authority in science, and it was quintessentially connected with Comte's conception of progress and of what he believed constituted true liberty. As we have said, we are re-emphasizing the point here that true liberty is nothing else than a rational submission to the preponderance of the laws of nature. All authority was to be vested in the scientific elite, comprising of industrialists, scientists, and the sociologist priests. Not everyone can have a right over guidance in human matters. Only some can. They are the ones who can submit themselves to the rigorous canons of the scientific approach and evidence. The rational submission that Comte highlighted as the cardinal feature of true liberty was inevitably linked to the acceptance of inequality as a rational fact. Comte's positive signs of progress made clear that progress impacted differentially on social groups. And here comes a discussion of the social groups, particularly the working class. Discussing the role of the working class, we quote, Comte described their inevitable lot as existing on the precarious fruits of labor and to suffer constant deprivation. Positivist sociology, while recognizing this as a great social problem, would seek to ameliorate the workers' condition, but not at the cost of destroying its classification and disturbing the general economy. Organic society, based on the positive conception of duties as against the negative conception of rights, which comes through the Enlightenment and particularly embodied in the French Revolution. So, this positive conception of duties was the solution to inequality, class differences, and conflict of interests. Thus, what was the working class supposed to do? The working class was to be taught through moral education that would supersede political solutions their rightful status of being subordinate to their employers. To take from Irving Zeitlin, who explained rational submission in these terms, the scientific elite will be the final authority of what these laws are. They will indicate the degree to which the lot of the lower classes may be slowly improved. In this way, the positive doctrine will provide a so-called constructive alternative to the insurrectionary solution advocated by the revolutionary school. Basic economic and political institutions are not to be changed, for history has shown that such change avails nothing. The class structure should remain as it is, and we see again an echo of Saint-Simon here. And class conflict presumably will be reduced, even eliminated, through the moral reconciliation of the classes. This will be facilitated by imposing a moral authority between the working classes and the leaders of society. So, once sociology has set itself the task of social reorganization and explaining the laws of order and progress that we have at length dealt with, comes the question of method. How would it do so? The resources that sociology would draw upon would be the ones provided by the natural sciences: observation, experimentation, and comparison. Comte believed that social evolution worked through the existence of certain invariable laws which synthesize progress and order. A mere collection of facts can do nothing for sociology if it has to be a positive science of social order and progress. In this respect, Koser says, Comte repudiated empiricism. Sociology as a science must seek to interpret and connect different facts all together through theory. Facts are not strictly speaking based on observation, but are constructed by the guiding hand of theory. So, Koser argues, based on Comte, that real knowledge can never be based on observed facts alone. It is based on knowing laws which connect all social phenomena through resemblance and succession. And Comte says that no real observation is possible except in as far as it is first directed and finally interpreted by some theory. Observation and laws are therefore indispensably connected. Experimentation is another method, but experimentation has been highly successful in the natural sciences. However, it can only be partially applied in society. Why? You see, for us, society, we do not have separate laboratories. For us, the entire society or the group that we are studying would be the laboratory. How would we follow experimentation? It would be extremely difficult. So, Comte says that direct experimentation is not feasible in the social world. So, he argued for the privileged place for pathological facts. He said that the pathological facts are the true scientific equivalent of experimentation for the social world. Experimentation takes place whenever the regular course of the phenomenon, that is the normal course of the phenomenon, is interfered with in any determinate manner. Many things may happen, many deviances may occur, but unless they become determinate in hampering the normal course, the regular course of events, of phenomena, we will not consider it a pathological case. But when it does, we will. And he says that pathological cases are therefore the true scientific equivalent of pure experimentation. Disturbances in the social body, that is these kinds of determinate disturbances, are analogous to diseases in the individual organism. So, the study of the pathological gives us a privileged access to an understanding of the normal. So, we therefore try to understand what is the normal by studying what is not normal, what is the pathological. Thus, we may come to know what the normal is when disturbance and deviance move toward a pathological extent where it can be compared to a disease, and that it needs attention, a disease. Comte gave pride of place to the method of comparison. He believed it helps in casting out the spirit of absolutism. We have already mentioned that Coase says that relativism is at the heart of Comte's theory. Why comparison? It helps in casting out absolutism. It thus can show the invariable laws of motion and order governing human society. This method consists of comparison of the different coexisting states of human society across the world, where these states are completely independent of each other. This method then, if they are independent of each other but existing across the world, it can allow us to observe the different stages of evolution simultaneously, all at once, all together we can see, because they are independent of each other. Comte contended that humanity as a whole progressed in a single and uniform manner. However, while this is true, it is also the case that various societies and peoples have progressed to extremely unequal degrees. The causes for such disparities in development of societies and peoples are still not known. Comte believed that the comparative method may be applied productively in the study of pre-industrial societies, which in turn would allow us to know certain phases of human development. The comparative method is inseparable from another method, and Comte laid great emphasis on it, the historical method. Comte believed that the historical comparison of consecutive states of humanity was not only the chief scientific device of the new political philosophy, it indeed constituted the substratum of science. It constituted that everything that was essential to science. Historical comparisons throughout the time of human evolution form the very core of sociological inquiry. It is the positive method and philosophy that we find in the theories of order and progress that Comte provided us with. The law of three stages, the development of the sciences, or what we know better as the hierarchy of the sciences and the theory of statics and dynamics. So, he is talking about also in that we have already looked at the dynamics, particularly through the law of three stages. What contributes to order and stability of statics? We look at that. So, these theories, the law of three stages, the hierarchy of the sciences, and his theory of statics and dynamics are all based on the positive method and philosophy. Coser, Swingewood, Nisbet, Raymond Aron, and Irving Zeitlin are the primary references for this lecture and for the academic script. Thank you.